Hi, Luminaires! I'm so happy to see you here. My name is Jamie Butler, and I'm here today with, oh, he's on that side,
Yes.
Brian Mercer. Say hi.
Okay. Hey, hello.
So, we are collaborating on this journey and a book to collect stories. It's called Animals in the Light, and we're here to shed light on the consciousness of animals and the afterlife of animals. So we get kind of deep into animals' contracts, kind of why they're with us, what our relationships really are, and well, I guess we do a lot, Brian. We talk
Yeah,
about animals' intelligence,
right.
emotional intelligence, their psychic abilities, their
Their
healing
spiritual
abilities,
path. Yeah,
a
exactly.
lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Luminaires, if this excites you, you can head to our website that Brian so graciously put together and runs, and he writes an incredible blog, and it's called animalsinthelight.com. It's scrolling beneath us right now.
I want to apologize to everyone who've written so far. I've had I would say a catastrophic couple of weeks, and but I should be able to get to it Saturday. And I want to get back to all the people who've written me some wonderful stories, and I'm going to post those on our stories site. So if you have stories where your animal has visited you after they've crossed over, or anything that's significant that suggests that they're still around, please go to animalsandlight.com and write me and let us know. Let us share your story with people who can benefit from the knowledge that our animals are still around.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you for joining us. We are just on Facebook today, and if you guys are listening in and you have questions, please just put your fingers to the keyboards, type them out. We are going to get to them as they come as best as we know how, but please do forgive us if we do look over them and kind of read what's up on our screen at the time, because we are going to be taking some time away to show you some incredible footage and share about our personal stories and experiences that we've had. Today, we're going to talk about animals' ability to see spirit.
Right. Well, yes, and actually, so I'm actually have a tale to tell about my cat, Mrs. Claus, who crossed over a year and a half ago and who visited me on several occasions. And I have some actual evidential footage to show you guys what I experienced. So should I start talking about that now, Jamie? Do you want to?
Sure.
Okay. So if you missed that episode, it is the one that's up on our front page now that documents Mrs. Claus crossing over and her actually visiting at the website or and a web camera capturing her images 7 hours after she crossed over. And so those photos are available at I think it was two Animals and Light shows ago. So please go visit there. But so this is a continuation of that, in which she kind of visited me on several occasions, and I think a lot of us have had this experience. And so I'll talk about two of them that are more subjective, right? So one of them was about a month or two after she crossed over, and one of my hobbies is that I'm studying jazz piano. And so this requires a lot of practice. And if you've ever known anyone, if you yourself are a piano student, or if you've lived with a piano student, you know that can be grating to be, around someone who's practicing the same thing over and over again. And one of the things Mrs. Claus used to do in life is that if I was practicing the piano, she could take about 40 minutes to an hour. And then after that, she would come into the room and she'd rub against my leg and she'd do this kind of bleeding sound that she used to do, and like, hey, enough already with the piano practicing. So anyway, it was a couple months after she had crossed over, and I was practicing the piano, and I felt a cat brushing. It felt kind of like a cat brushing against my leg where she used to do it, but it was my pedal ankle. But what it felt like that feeling when your sock kind of gets pulled down, but it only happened on the side of my leg where Mrs. Claus would have rubbed up against me. And I looked down and there was no cat there. And I realized it was about an hour into my practice. So this is exactly when she would have had enough and wanted to let me know enough already. So I thought that was interesting. And that happened more than once. Another dramatic instance was when I was upstairs, and this happened maybe 6 months later. I was upstairs, and it was the winter time. It was dark upstairs, and Wilson, my other Berman, he's a seal point Berman like Mrs. Claus was upstairs with me. So I was going downstairs, and I turned off the lights. So all the lights upstairs were off, and it was dark in the stairwell. And there was light coming up from the stairwell from the first floor. So it was illuminated a little bit. I could see, but not really well. So I was going down the stairs, and when I was halfway down the stairs, I turned around to make sure Wilson was coming down with me, and I saw him behind me a couple paces on the stairs. And I got to the bottom of the stairs, and I turned around, and no cat was there. And I don't think I imagined that, but it was, I don't know what to make of it. So those are the kind of subjective things that would have happened, that it's harder to like show you guys and say this really happened. What I'm going to show you now, and Jamie, when you get a chance, you can put up the window I'm sharing. Was what happened. This happened about 2 months after, a little more than 2 months after Mrs. Claus crossed over. It was I can tell you the date. It was the 21st of September 2018, and it was about almost 11 o'clock at night. And my cat Emily, and this is a picture of Emily here. This is not that episode, but this just was looking up in the corner of the room as if something was up there, like a bug or a moth. But I looked up there and nothing was there, but she kept looking at it. She was very interested in it. Okay, so that was kind of noted that, but okay, so that happened. A few days later, this is now Tuesday, September 25th, about the same time, also in my room, Emily sees something up in the corner of my room, but this time it's the opposite corner. And it's not just interesting to her, it's interesting to the point she gets up on the top of my headboard, and this is where she is here, and she's looking at whatever is in the corner of the room. So not just content to look at it, but she's trying to get to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, these are iPhone live photos, so they're kind of do animate, and I have 4 of these, and you can kind of see her behavior as she is looking for whatever is in the corner. So here's another photo. She's looking at something that's there, and she wants to get to it. And this is very unusual. She doesn't get up here, and it's hard to tell from this photo, but the headboard's about to my chest, so it's not quite 5 feet high, but it's pretty high. I mean, you gotta work to get up there. So something is definitely interesting to her. Okay, so a few more days go by. Now it's a week from the very first time she saw the image, and that's this. And this is in the other corner of the room, the opposite corner. And this is pretty much what it looked like the very first time, about the same time of night. And she is, is this a live photo? No. She is looking at something in the corner of the room. And something is up there. You can see she's interested. In this case, I did take a little video of it. Hey guys, and there's not a lot of sound on this video, but if I do talk during it, let me know if you can hear the sound. That's a cuddle clone in the corner. It's a stuffed animal.
That is so sweet. Did you watch her tail? It's like the total stalking of something. There's nothing up there.
Right.
So the logic in me says, okay, so here's my line of questioning. Did you ever play laser lights with her and do it up the wall like that in the corner?
No.
No. Is there ever like car lights that can zip by, or
No, it's the backyard.
it's just like a dull little corner space, right?
Right, right. Well, there's a third part to this story, or the fourth part.
Okay, keep going.
So first of all, I'm just going to play tell me if you can hear me talking in this video.
There's absolutely nothing in the corner. I don't know what she's looking at.
Could you hear that sound? Hear me talking in the video? Come back, Miss Jamie. I can't hear you.
You can't see me at the bottom. I'm shaking my head. Yes.
Oh, you did. Okay. So about a week after this, I was in my family room, and I had all the lights off, and I was watching a movie, and it was a particularly dark scene in the movie, and I saw coming from the hallway, coming from this master bedroom into the room I was in, it was a light. It was a misty cloud that was up toward the ceiling, and it was kind of pushing into the room. And it looked like you described, Jamie, like headlights in a car that would say go on the ceiling. But my house is maybe 10 or more feet above the street, and there are trees and tree leaves in the front, so there's no way for that sort of light reflection to be on the ceiling. And it also was like three-dimensional, so you could actually see it not connected to the wall like those lights would be, but it was like pushing in. And what was interesting, and my brain immediately wanted to filter it out, and because I've had, well, my fiance has gifts to see spirits and stuff like that. I'm become more attuned to not, because I wonder how many people see this stuff and their brain just filters it out as, oh, that's just noise. But so I look back at the TV and I look back again, and it's like, no, that's something. That was something. So after that, there was never an instance where she saw anything up on the ceiling. So those are the four instances, and like I said, it happened within 2 weeks span. So that is that story. Are you there, Jamie? You're still not. Just the two of us now.
No, I'm here. I'm always watching and listening.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Thank you so much, Luminaires, for putting your fingers to the keyboards. Some of the things you're sharing are just amazing. Like Jane, she has a dog in the middle of the night that will just all of a sudden get up and start barking at the corner in the wall like that as well. Like,
wow. Right. And it's not a menacing bark. It's a friendly bark, hopefully. Yeah. So this was quite gratifying to see, and given that Mrs. Claus had already showed that she was still around, that she had been coming back. One of the things about the video, the pictures of her coming back, is I was not in the room when she came back to visit, which if I had been in the room, the web camera would not have taken those pictures. So it's just as well I was in the room, but I always felt kind of bad that I wasn't there. She came to visit me. And so this was a suggestion that she came to visit. Okay. So the next story takes place about, why don't you put up can you give us the three? Mm-hmm. You don't need this to be that big. So this next image is, 6 months after she, come on, where are we? Okay, there we go. 6 months after she crossed over, so this is February now. This is actually a year ago this week. And can you hear me? Okay. So, and a snowstorm just blanketed Seattle, and we don't get these very often. And so it just shut the city down. And so no one was going anywhere anytime soon. So there's another picture of the backyard. There's a lot of snow for Seattle, especially. And so I had just purchased, so I watch a lot of the Travel Channel, which if anyone watches the Travel Channel, they might as well call it the Ghost Channel, because it's all kinds of ghost and paranormal shows. And I see something, this is called a K2 meter. And I was thinking about Mrs. Claus's visits, and Jamie and I are now at this point in time actively working on the book. And I thought, I should be able to get one of these meters and be able to detect if animals are, if Mrs. Claus is coming, I should be able to detect her. So I had this meter out, and I had it for a couple of days. And what happens is when it goes off, it makes a very slight noise that there is some kind of movement. But I had it for like 2 days, and I started putting it places where she would be. So she would always sit at the end of the bed. I stuck at the end of the bed, nothing. I worked from home on the couch, and I had all these devices. And the only way I could make it even blip was to stick it next to my phone when I sent the text. Nothing. And it's starting to get a little bit disappointed. And so what I like to do now is one night it started to go off. And I explained this in the video. So I'm going to play the video, and why don't we make this full screen? And if you can't hear the sound from the video, please write in the comments so I can always narrate if it's just. And yellow was on the couch where she. All right, so I'm gonna. So if I'm on the screen, you should be able to hear it through my microphone. Let's try this again, and let me know if you can hear sound now.
Brian, you can hear everything. It's fine.
Oh, but they were getting comments in the thing that's saying that they can't hear any sound. And it's. So Tom is saying no sound of any kind. Magnetic frequency EMF, and it goes. So maybe you can hear Jamie, but it doesn't look like they can.
Hey, Bethany. The book is going to be focused on all animals. But on my end, I can hear sound from the video, and I can hear you talking as well.
Right. Okay. So I think that's because you're the host. So let's, Jamie, why don't you go ahead and just have it with just me, and then people can hear I think they'll be able to hear the video through my microphone, I think. So, and let's try that. Can we try that?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had this K2 meter for 3 days now, and it detects electromagnetic frequency EMF, and the ghost hunters use it. And the idea was to see if Mrs. Claus would come back
if she was visiting, truly. And so I've had this, and so it's, as you can see, it has a gauge. The first light's always on. The second light is goes off if there's any little, electromagnetic stuff. And the third light is yellow, and then orange, and then red. And so I've had this for three days, and I don't know if you can hear it. It's probably, you can't pick it up. It's really quiet, but it does make a noise. It sounds like a hard drive accessing data. This is up near the center of the head of my bed, and this is where Mrs. Claus would sit. And you can see there's activity now. I'm recording this with my phone, but I've turned off the signals going in and out of it. So there's no signals going on around the place right now. And so I've had this for several days, and I've been like sitting on the couch when I'm working from home. I'm snowed in at the moment, and I put it on the back of the couch where Mrs. Claus uses to sleep, and I put it at the foot of the bed where she normally is, where it would sleep, but she was alive, and nothing. It's just been that green light and nothing else. Now, if I put it up near my phone or up near a computer, it would maybe get up to the green and yellow. And when I was on the couch where she would normally be, I had several devices. I had my work laptop, my home laptop, I had an iPad, an iPhone, and the only time it would do anything but this solid green light would be if I picked up my phone to text, and it would be a blip, and then it would be over. And as you can see, there's kind of more or less steady activity. Last night, before I went to bed, I put it in front of me. I sleep on my side, and it's where Mrs. Claus used to cuddle with me. I would say, "It's time for cuddles, Mrs. Claus," and she would come up and flop in front of my head, and I would put my arm out, and she would put her head on my hand, and we would facing away from me, and we would sleep like that all night. And anyway, so last night I did that, just even though she's gone, just in case she was around, and closed my eyes. And then after I was drifting off to sleep, and I started to hear that very subtle noise, like a hard drive being accessed, and I looked up, and the light was coming on. And so my other cat, Emily, came up and sat in this location, which is very unusual, and the activity stopped. And so eventually she settled down next to me and near my legs. And when I woke up, the activity started again, and it was just a green light. And occasionally, if I started talking to Mrs. Claus as if she was there, I would
you can see it just went to yellow just when I said her
especially
name.
if I asked a question of her, strangely enough. And so there's no devices nearby, but just in case, I have an iPad on the nightstand near my bed, which I turned off, and as you can see, it's still going strong. What's weird is this is a place where she would sit, but what's weird is I've done this literally a half dozen times. If I move this away from that spot, the activity stops. And I've tried it different directions. So there's no electronic stuff even close to this area. That's Wilson. So you can see it stopped. Move it there. Move it there. Just a second, bud. Now if I move it this is where Mrs. Claus would be sitting.
Mrs. Claus, are you there? If you're there, can you make the light go on to the yellow?
So anyway, what happened was so of course it happened in the middle of the night when this first happened. I went to sleep after Emily said it, and it stopped. And then I woke up the next morning, it was going off, and I laid in bed for a long time. And I think this was a Friday, so I'm trying to think if I worked or if I had the day off, but I wasn't going anywhere. I was still in my pajamas, right? And but at some point in time, it's like, well, I got to get up, even though this might be Mrs. Claus. I mean, I got stuff to do, but I would kept coming in and checking it, and the light would still be on there. I mean, in life, she would still have been in on the bed, so it's not unusual. And so this recording is made maybe 2 hours after I got up, and it was still going on. Interestingly enough, not long after I came back, and let's go ahead and so and Emily was back in the spot for whatever reason. Maybe she heard
so it's later,
and you can see that this is maybe the light has stopped, and which is what I would expect if Mrs. Claus was there. So no, the book isn't about Mrs. Claus, but it's just obviously a lot of personal experiences. And what's curious is that Jamie and I started working on this book before Mrs. Claus crossed over. And both Jamie and I lost a pet while we were starting to work on the book. And we were both kind of wondering, is the reason why we're this is happening because we're working on the book and we need to have these experiences fresh in our mind. And it's unfortunate to think of that, but we kind of wondered if it's true. So one last footnote. And so if you keep leave, so one more photo. So that night, it was really snowing hard. I don't know if you can see the snow animated in this photo. So yeah. So I turned off all the lights in the house. I had a fire going, and it was just all quiet. And I was just sitting at the window, just watching the snow fall for a long time. And I thought, I want to see if it's possible Mrs. Claus is still around. And I took out the K2 meter and I put it next to me on the windowsill, and it started going off just like it had that morning. And it's never done that since. And so she was I would imagine, obviously I don't know for sure, but I think it was her that was still around. So that's my experience with the K2 meter. I haven't had a lot of success with it since then, but I truthfully haven't tried to use it. I mean, this was kind of enough validation for.
Barrett has some really great suggestions about leaving the mic there, like a super sensitive mic, and see if it also picks her up or has some kind of sound interference.
Oh, interesting.
And asking more yes and no questions to get her engaged with you.
Right. Interesting. Well, I kind of hope she's my new kitten Dandelion. So hopefully she's come back and is here permanently. And that's my next blog post is about Dandelion and picking her out and what it's like. It's kind of ominous to go to pick out a cat and with the idea that it's going to be that you hope it's your former cat, and so there's a little pressure when that happens. And so I'll talk about that experience, and it's still too early. There's some indication that it's the same cat, but it's too early for me to have any definitive stories. But so Jamie, this is the first time you're seeing this stuff too. What do you think based on?
I think it's wonderful. I think you've just scratched the surface.
Right.
I think taking a more steady route with it, with same type of day, same time of day, right, and going through a list of questions very precisely and just seeing what kind of rhythm can be laid there. The scientific part of my brain wants me to recall that energy has memory, just like we have muscle memory.
Sure.
We have residual energy memory.
Oh, right.
And so this residual energy can be left after moments of passion, moments of anger, yelling. You can come into a room and it feels gross after people have fought.
Right. Yes.
You
Yes.
just don't know why. But then it clears out because you're not feeding it the attention or the energy to stay alive.
Right.
So if there's no more arguments happening, after a day, after 2 days, after it starts to dissipate.
Right.
So I don't think that a case like this where an animal used to sleep in one spot, like we would have residual energy. And I think that after a while, you always have fond memories. Oh, that's where she was.
Right.
And that's where she'd stay. So having those thoughts would feed that to grow or to stay. But
Right.
I don't know if it would be enough to make
The
a K2 reader go off or respond to questions,
Right.
So that's exciting.
Right. And so this was 6 months after she crossed over, maybe a little bit, no, almost to the day when she crossed over, maybe 4 days short of her when she crossed over. And what was interesting, the first 2 days, I mean, because there are electronics will give off electromagnetic frequencies, but I couldn't even get it to go off with, I was putting it near the wall where the light switch. I mean, I couldn't. I was like, does this thing work?
I know, right? You think they're broken, and it's really frustrating.
Right. And it's like I had and it's not cheap, and so I was like, thinking about returning it, and I was putting it on places where, in terms of the duration where she would have slept.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been longer. So if there was residual energy, I would have think it would have been at the bottom of the bed, or it would have been on the sofa, in the back of the sofa. None of those places. It was only after I said, "Time for cuddles, Mrs. Claus," and then that was the cue to have her come up there. And then what was interesting was it didn't happen right away. I fell asleep and I just heard this click, 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 click in my half sleep state, and I opened my eyes and it was making noise. The other thing is with the snow falling. She never was on that windowsill. It's not like there would be any residual energy there. It was that morning when this went off, when the snow was happening. And so anyway, that's some more hard evidence. But there was a question about was the book going to be about Mrs. Claus or Mrs. Claus focus? Certainly I would like to include these stories, but the idea, we're going to do case files from stories that you guys send in, cases from Jamie's readings that we can use to expand upon. And so if the chapter, for example, is on, say, farm animals and how they experience, how their life or spiritual path is the same or different than animals that are more what we would consider companions. And so we would maybe use a story that would highlight those types of things.
We've gotten so many wonderful responses from our luminaires. Like Lydia just said, love your videos. Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
We're offering any kind of IT help. So if you want to maybe set something up that's a little more hefty, he's the IT guy, and he said to talk to him.
Well, so the issue is, and Jamie, that we're using BeLive, and we haven't. I don't think I've tried sharing a screen with BeLive before. So there's an extension, a Chrome extension that. So I think it was intended to share a screen, but not necessarily the sound from. Not even the screen. It's to share the window.
The image of, not the sound.
Image, not the sound, right? So I don't think it was intended for the purpose we're using it. But I appreciate the help. Thank you. And I don't have any more of these videos, so so this is what I've got. So anything you want to talk about, Jamie?
No, I was just sharing with you before we started that Umi had one of these moments. And of course, that was just yesterday. So I didn't really have time to download anything. And there's going to be tons of glare. So that's no fun. But you can just tell he's looking around and we weren't playing nothing. He was in my lap. He got up. He went to that little spot, which had nothing to do with anything, and started staring up and down the walls. And now he's going to go try to fish his treats out of the cupboard. In here, he's going to now knock everything off.
I see. So in terms of, can you talk a little bit about Bunny and her? Is it her? It's her, right? It was a girl. And her passing, because Mrs. Claus was like 17 years old and took 6 months for her to shuffle up. You had an awful, more traumatic experience.
Yeah, she was barely 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out maybe 2 weeks before. I guess it was maybe maximum 4 weeks. And we had like a week of trying to figure out what to do. And then by that time we had 2 weeks and we were assisting her. And she had a stomach cancer that we didn't know how to detect unless she went through some vigorous testing. And
Right.
it was the kind that you couldn't really cure. It was quite aggressive until she got this little cough is when I took her in.
I see.
So that was the earliest sign that we saw. And it was just downhill from there. But
how did they detect it? How did they? Was there actually a tumor that they knew at that point? That X-rays. Okay, wow.
Yeah, because I like to do Reiki.
Sure.
So when my animals are on me, I'm petting them and I'm like looking at their energy and my hands like they're on. And whenever I would do that with Bunny, I could do that on her head, and by the time I got to her back or her belly, no. And she was like that, kind of since we got her, and she had a very tragic entry. Somebody had thrown her from a car like at 4 weeks old and severed her arm, which we had to surgically remove. And she was on, death's door, and we kind of revived her.
Right.
So she got like 5 really fun years with us. We had a great time with her.
Right.
You go to look back I'm thinking, God, she would never let me do Reiki. She was always up and gone. Because when you Reiki cancer, it hurts.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
It's not a comfortable sensation.
Right.
And she didn't like that. And she never liked the chest and the belly to be touched. And we just thought she was just one of those cats, because we had another cat that didn't like that. So it didn't give me any kind of clues or signs. But she didn't like it because it hurt. So when she had the cough and I took her in, I said, it sounds like she has a hairball she can't get out. And there is really rare cases where a hairball can be made. They can kind of come up and come down, and they have to go in there and fish it out. But when we took her in, they felt something in her stomach and then immediately did an x-ray and a sonogram. And we're just like, we're really sorry. Like, this is what's happening. And they did blood work and we can diagnose it, and then you as a person, like I had to look back and just forgive myself.
Right.
For not pushing it or being more curious of why she wouldn't like Reiki and why she wouldn't let me touch her. But sign-wise, there was nothing. And I racked my brains because we love this cat. Like, she was a family member.
Right.
She had this thing where she loved chasing her treats.
Mm-hmm.
I would sit down in the kitchen and I'd toss them and she'd jump up and catch them in one paw. And then eat it before she hit it. That was her thing. This baseball player. I always called her like left field.
She only has one front paw.
One front paw. She'd jump up on her back and she'd catch it in the one paw and eat it.
That's unreal.
So I sat down in the kitchen last night and Rui's making dinner. And I said, Umi, come here. I said, Umi, I want to introduce you to Bunny. I was like, Bunny was an amazing cat with us. And she did this trick where I would throw the treats and she would chase them. And I'm talking and how great Bunny is. And Rui's laughing in the kitchen. He's like, are you talking to the cat again? And he goes, do you think Umi's feeling guilty that you're telling him how great this other cat is and that Umi has to live up to him? And I said, maybe. I just want Umi to learn how to chase the treats because it was so much fun to throw him. And so I tap it on the floor so he knows I have it in my hand. And all of a sudden, like, I kid you not, he ran around to where Bunny sat and he sat alert. And I looked at him and I was like, okay, I'm going to throw it. And I threw it and he took off. Bam! He was up in the air and he couldn't catch it. Poor thing.
Right.
And he's like all clumsy. And he couldn't catch it. And then it hit the ground and he just went crazy over it.
Wow.
And I looked at him, I was like, all my other cats, I throw it and they'd look at me. They'd look around, they'd be like, are you going to give me a treat? Like,
wow.
So I've never had a cat do that. And maybe that's a common thing that others do, but I got the next one. I tapped it down and he ran up to me and he sat right where Bunny would sit and wait. And so I had to call my husband over. I was like, come here. I was like, look what Bunny just taught Umi. He's like, come on.
Wow.
He goes, that's weird. And I go, yeah, it is weird. It's great, isn't it? So
can I ask you about the Reiki again? So was it always the case or was it later on maybe when the tumor was progressing. That
Always. When we first rescued her from the highway,
yes,
she let me do Reiki on her.
right.
But after her surgery, where we got her arm removed, she let me Reiki the sutures, but then it was right after it was healed, there was no more Reiki. I'd have to like follow her,
Right. Yeah.
Catch her.
Yes. About 4 years before Mrs. Claus crossed over, she had internal issues that, eventually would be her demise. But so I became a first degree Reiki specifically so I could do Reiki for her. So I get her home and she wants to have nothing to do with it. I said, "Oh, you're gonna," even though if you do Reiki, you're supposed to ask permission and you're supposed to get it. But it's like, oh no, we're doing this.
There's not even a thing called aggressive Reiki, but it sure is. Come here.
Right. So I never did really. So I would aim it toward her, and after a while, she got used to it, and I think Reiki at the 6 months mark ended her life. So you think that Bunny was there teaching her? You think there was some communication going on when you did that?
That was crazy because there's plenty of places you could sit. I mean, do you know, It's not like there's furniture in odd places and you've got to be there to be in good viewpoint.
Yes.
No, and he constantly came back to that spot. And it was like, why there?
Did Bunny visit you after she crossed over?
No, not for a long, long time.
Wow.
I think I was just too torn in half.
Right. Because you don't expect 5 years old to be.
And I'm doing so good. Like Thanksgiving was a year, and I'm able to talk about it now without falling into absolute puddles and tears. So not like that's an award for anything, but it's crazy. Even after a year.
Yeah, the grief can just hit you, and that's what kind of why we're doing this. This program. I mean, in this book, but I mean, the thing is, so I knew Mrs. Claus was okay, and literally like a week after this, I heard some pop song. What was it? 1,000 miles. What it says basically I
love this song.
I'll walk 1,000 miles just to see and hold you again. And I'm tearing up just thinking about it. I totally lost it because it's going to sneak up on you, even if your animal is there visiting you, the spirit anyway. I've talked to some people who have written into the website, and I've exchanged emails with them about their stories, and they're like, they have cats or dogs that have reincarnated, or a dog that was reincarnated, and they're sitting next to them, and they're thinking about the old dog and crying, even though they know for sure.
Yeah.
Animal communication also, verified. 2 animal communicators. This is the same spirit, but you still miss the animal. It's just part of the way grief works.
And these relationships are so important, and I think they're undervalued in our society. And I really hope this book helps change that.
Right, exactly, and supports people who are grieving or just looking at the elder years and helping. So part of the book we want to talk about. You call it hospice care, but just basically. We need to know it's coming and how you can kind of maximize that time, because you realize you get to the end of their lives and you realize, you could spend the entire of the animal's life next to them, adoring them, and it wouldn't be enough. So how then, if there's, days or weeks or left, well, now what do? You better get started. But I mean, it also, it's one of those things where every day, if you can, just spend 5 minutes, because we get so busy, right? We get so busy and distracted with our phones, and animals right there asking for attention. I mean, here's an example. So the new kitten, Dandelion, who I'm hoping is Mrs. Claus, I will get home and I will get on the computer to take care of a few things. And I'll look down and Dandelion is on my lap, and I don't remember her getting there, but she's there. That's how distracted I am. So I would urge everybody to just even if you have to write in your day planner, in your phone, or an alarm, set an alarm, say, connection time with your dog, your cat, just where you can sit with them and be with them and appreciate them every day, because it's important.
It's big.
Yeah.
So Luminaires, please, if you have stories to share, these have been wonderful online right now. you can head over to animalsinthelight.com and share them, with people. And I had a question during a live stream at Griff's Gifts if we use the stories that are on the blog or what you submit. Is it just a surprise that we use the story? And I told them no, we're very communicative.
Yes.
We for interest in the story. We get your permission to use your words, your likeliness, and your story so that can help other people. We're never going to do anything that's just a surprise.
Right. So what happens? So I'll write you back, and what I'll usually, because right now there's no interface for getting a picture in for the first. So I like to ask. So I'll write you back and ask if you're interested in me posting it, and if I can include a photo of your pet, because that's usually helpful to kind of get a sense of your story more, and then it gets posted. And so so it's definitely a back and forth kind of thing, and it's possible, Jamie, don't you think, that we will contact you maybe at a later date to include you in the book and maybe do some supplemental readings with Jamie to try to get more information. So what we would do is have like a case history and kind of get more information from the other side. So we have a book proposal, and we have one of those story case files written. And it was very interesting because I don't think it was Jamie, I think it was Maitland, actually described what it was like from the dog's point of view to cross over, because we think of a tunnel and white light, and I was really expecting, hello.
This is Aloha.
Aloha. Wow. Beautiful.
Aloha. She is not social. That was the first and last time you'll see Aloha.
Okay. All right. Okay. She didn't realize she was on camera.
Done now. It's done.
Jamie's at home today. That's why Aloha's in the room. So yes. And so, we'd like to use your stories if possible. And it was very interesting to hear from the animal's perspective what it was like to cross over, because there wasn't so much of a tunnel and a white light. The way Maitland described it was like, so it was like the dog couldn't really see, but then it started to feel this wind blowing through. Oh, you don't even know this, Jane. Did you ever listen to the recording? Because when I think we were channeling Maitland, and Jamie doesn't get to hear because she's not there. But there was kind of a wind, and basically his name was King. King could feel the room he was in, and knew Mom was there, and started to reorient himself. But he didn't cross over right away. He actually stayed around for a while before he crossed over. I think it was like 2 weeks. He was definitely in place, and she, King's mom, had a lot of, human mom, I should say, had a lot of stories where he was visiting and feeling him up on the bed, or she could hear his toenails against the bathroom floor. It was really cool because we'll save it for the book. So, but it was an interesting story. So if you write in, it's a possibility that we could follow up with you and use your story in the book. So, well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
That's not Aloha. That's Umi, right? That's Umi. That's not Aloha.
That's Umi.
All right.
You'll see him 1,000 times. Super social. He's trying to figure out how to get in front of the camera now.
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for being here and for staying with us for so long. And we'll be going back through and helping and answering questions and things of that nature. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yes, absolutely.
Facebook Live.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Brian, for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Luminaires. Take care. Have a great Valentine's Day.
Right. Happy Valentine's Day.
Bye.